Hi! Welcome back to the weird side of YouTube. This is the Writing Rainbow, and today I wanted to talk about people that think that they don't like to read, because at one point I thought that I didn't like to read, and that is on the school system. I got this idea from a woman on TikTok who talked about how the school system tricks kids into thinking that they don't like to read, which she gave a lot of examples as to why. None of those are my story, so I thought I would make my own video. But I will leave a link to her video in the description, so you guys can get her side of the story. But when I was very young, about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I read all the time, mostly because there was a reward system in place with my elementary school where if you read a certain number of novels or books, whatever, you would get a pizza from Pizza Hut for free. And I love Pizza Hut. I still love Pizza Hut, as you can tell. So I read and read and read and read and read, but didn't take anything in. I wasn't actually reading. I wasn't immersing myself into the story. So that's one reason why I thought after that, as a teenager and a young adult in my 20s, I thought I hated to read because I had instilled it into my head that reading was a way to get a reward, and that reading in itself is not a reward. And also, during elementary school, when we read, we didn't discuss the feelings that we had while we were reading. Reading was a numb experience for me, and probably everyone that I went to school with, because all we did, when we had assigned readings, all we did was memorize the text and regurgitate it back for a test. We never discussed the feelings or how the author intended us to feel. It wasn't an art in my school. It was something that you had to memorize, like math. Writing and reading was definitely not looked at as an art. It was looked at as something to be tested on, something to memorize. Even the classics like Mark Twain, To Kill a Mockingbird, all those kind of stuff. We didn't go over. We didn't talk about how we were supposed to feel about certain things. We didn't talk about how the themes of the book mirrored the author's mood while he was writing. We didn't talk about any of that. We just memorized everything. So for the longest time, I thought reading wasn't something to be enjoyed subconsciously. I knew people enjoyed it, but in my head, it was what it was, and it was a dry, barren, emotionless experience because I had learned from the adults around me that that's what it was. And not until I started writing my own books, my own stories, that I realized I want the reader to feel a certain way. I want this to be an emotional journey. I want them to cry when a character dies. I want them to rejoice when a couple gets together that they wanted to get together from the beginning. Why did I not feel any of those emotions when we read Romeo and Juliet in 6th grade? Why did I not feel any emotions when we read To Kill a Mockingbird? And then I went back and reread these books, and I had this wonderful, beautiful awakening, and it was crazy because I finally felt like I was part of these worlds that these authors have created for this. And I can't speak for every author, but as an author myself, I don't write books to be a numb, emotionless experience. It's art to me. I want to take you on a journey. I'm a storyteller, first and foremost. So in my mind, I don't think any authors would approve of the way that I was taught in school to read their books. Very bland, emotionless, point A to point B, don't get involved, don't think, don't feel, just memorize the text and regurgitate it for a test. That's very sick to me. Now that I look back, it's a little disgusting. It's definitely not the worst thing that happened to me when I was a kid, but it is one of the things that made me question a lot of things growing up. reading is more than just memorizing text and regurgitating it for a test. In general, memorizing is not learning, but that's all the American school system seems to focus on, is memorization. But that isn't learning. We don't learn about how or why or any of the important stuff. We only learn 1 + 1 = 2, or we only memorize the plot points of a novel. We don't go into the feelings or what it means as a culture or a society. We don't go into any of that. At least my school didn't. All three of my schools, actually, elementary, middle, and high school, we didn't go any of that. Maybe it's just my hometown that's messed up, which I already knew that, but still. There's a lot of things that go into reading that a lot of people don't really understand. If they learned like I did, especially, they like watching movies based on the books, but they don't want to read the books. If you think you like the movies that the books are based on, just wait until you get a copy of the book. The book has so much more detail, it's so much more fleshed out. I guarantee every movie you've ever watched and liked that is based on a book, you'll like the book even more. If you are trying to get into reading, take your favorite movies. Like if you like The Hunger Games, read the books, obviously, but deeper than that, if you like fantasy, if you like playing fantasy video games, pick up a fantasy novel. I'm not talking you have to dive into Tolkien right away, but if you play Warcraft, there's Warcraft novels that you can pick up. If you like Disney, there's Disney novels that you can pick up. If you like Disney, there's a really good series of book novels. I don't know if you call them novels or novellas because they're kind of short. The villain side of the story, I have Ursula's right here called Poor Unfortunate Soul. I have no idea who wrote it. Oh, that's cool. The cover is Ursula and then the actual cover is Vanessa. I have no idea who wrote this. Serena Valentino wrote the Ursula one. I don't know if she wrote all of them, but I know there's a series of them. If you're into Disney, that is, and you want to get into reading, definitely pick these up. I haven't finished this one, but I can guarantee you there will be a book review for this on my channel once I do. I am actually a really big fan of the Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit movies, but I have never read a Tolkien book in my life. I should probably get on that. That might be my new reading goal for this year. I think reading is such an important thing, and we are losing it as a society, especially in America, because there's so many people now that just don't want to read. Either they don't think it's cool because they're young and they want to try to be hip or whatever, or they just don't find enjoyment in it because they learned about reading like I did. If you're trying to get into reading and you just can't concentrate, I have that problem too. I will have to reread a paragraph 2 or 3 times sometimes because my head will just be churning about something completely different, completely away from the book. It'll be like about my fiance, or about bills I have to pay, or about chores I need to do, or like anything, or my nephew that lives like 10 miles away and I haven't seen him in like a year. It goes, my brain bounces, and I think I have ADHD, I'm just not diagnosed yet. But if you have that kind of issue, the thing that helps me is obviously rereading the paragraph if you don't pick it up, but that's boring. What I like to do is, you have to want to do this though. This isn't like a easy fix. If you're really into a book and you really like it, make it like a study practice guide. I'm in my 30s and I'm not in school anymore, but I really miss school, so doing things like this is fun for me. I study books, novels, their lore, how their world works, things like that, just to make sure that I understand everything that the book is trying to tell me. Like when I read The Asylum for Victorian Girls, I was doing all kinds of research with book readings from the author. I listened to her music to try and see if there was any hints. I reread a few of the chapters, just different things like that. What you can do, if you're into drawing, you can try to draw some of the characters. You can try to map out the world the way you think it would be. There's a lot of books that come with maps, like fantasy novels, but unfortunately it's kind of a rare thing at this point. There's lots of fan sites and fan art things that you can look up for a book that you're trying to read and concentrate on. There's like whole worlds of fandoms based around big novels, I know for sure, but like for obscure novels, new ones, maybe indie ones that you're trying to get into, there might not be so much of that, but I don't care how bad you think your art is. If you want to make art for something, make art. Make art. I don't think my art is good. I don't think it's bad, but I still make it, and I still show it off. Art is just another way to immerse yourself deeper into a world when you're trying to stay in it for a little bit. And all reading is escapism, really. And 2021 is already off to a great start, so I'm sure a lot of you are looking for an escape right now. There's just not a lot of things that you can do if you have ADD or ADHD or just can't pay attention when you're trying to read. It's easier from a visual standpoint to watch television or a movie than it is to read a book, especially for people that are neurodivergent like myself. If you're trying to get into reading for a first timer, I would start off with something small, light, delicate, easy to digest. Don't jump into Tolkien right away. Don't jump into Harry Potter right away. Not a series. Don't jump into a series. Start off with something small and light. But that's all I have for you guys today. There's all sorts of things you can do to get into reading. If you want to get into reading, there's so many books you can pick up. If you think you hate reading, I hope that I convinced you to at least give it a try. I just keep in mind that I used to hate reading and now I'm a writer. So you might become a writer as well. And there's lots of writers that I've been seeing on Facebook and everywhere who hate reading, but they love writing. And that doesn't make any sense to me, because if you're not reading anything, how do you know what you're writing is good if you don't have anything to compare it to? But I'm going off on a whole other subject. I might have a whole video on that, I don't know, eventually. And if you're a teacher, or a mother, or a father, don't do the reward system for kids if you're trying to get them to read, because it warps their head around reading being point A to point B to get something in return. It isn't. You're making them think that the reward itself isn't reading itself. You're warping your kid into thinking that a beautiful high art is nothing but like something to do to get something from, like a reward. But for now, I'm going to sign off. I love you guys. See you next time. Anyway, just my ears. I'm rambling at this point. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. You like my makeup? I worked really hard on it. Buttoning up my vest to be a little more proper. Little more proper, darling. I was gonna do a book haul today for my Warcraft books. I have another one up there, but it's just 2 books. So what kind of book haul would that have been?